She stood up in front of everyone, rubbed her belly, and smiled at me like she'd already won. My husband froze. The room went silent. She thought she was about to destroy me in front of 100 guests, but she didn't know what I had in my purse. And she didn't know who I really was. If you've ever been underestimated by someone who thought they had power over you, stay with me till the end because what happened next still gives me chills. Follow now so you don't miss how this story ends. My name is Bella, and for 8 years I thought I had life figured out. I had a good job, a beautiful home, and a husband named Terrence who everyone around us said was one of the good ones. We met in our late 20s, back when I still believed that charm meant character. He opened doors for me, remembered the smallest details about my day, called just to hear my voice when I was tired. People used to tell me all the time, Bella, you got lucky with him, and for the longest time I believed them too. We built something that looked from the outside like exactly what everyone wants. A nice house, good friends. Sunday dinners with family that actually felt warm instead of forced. If you had looked at our life from a distance, you would have thought we had it all figured out. But here's something I've learned the hard way. Sometimes the marriages that look the most perfect on the outside are hiding the deepest cracks underneath, and you don't see those cracks until the whole thing starts to come apart in your hands. It started so quietly I almost missed it. About a year before that party, small things began to shift. Nothing dramatic, nothing you could point to and say there, that's the moment everything changed, just little things. Terrence started staying at work later than usual. His phone, which used to sit face up on the kitchen counter without a second thought, started living face down, screen dark, buzzing every so often like it had secrets of its own. He started stepping out of the room to take calls he used to take right in front of me without even thinking twice. And when I asked him about it, gently at first, he'd laugh it off. Babe, it's just work stress. Babe, you're reading into things that aren't there. And I wanted to believe him so badly that I let myself believe him, because the alternative was something I wasn't ready to face yet. Looking back now, I think a part of me already knew. I just wasn't ready to know that I knew. It was an ordinary Tuesday when the wall finally cracked open. I was doing his laundry because that's the kind of wife I had been for 8 years, the kind who still did her husband's laundry even after long days at her own job, and a receipt fell out of the pocket of his jacket. A hotel receipt, downtown. Dated 2 weeks earlier, on a night he told me he was out of town for a work trip in another city entirely. My hands started shaking, but I didn't scream and I didn't cry, not yet. I folded that little piece of paper up, slid it into the back of my dresser drawer, and I waited. That night at dinner, I asked him casually about his trip, nothing accusing in my voice, just curious. Which hotel had he stayed at? He answered smoothly, without even a flicker of hesitation, and named a completely different hotel in a completely different part of the city. He lied to my face without blinking, and something in me went very still and very quiet. Now, some women in my position would have thrown that receipt down on the table right then and demanded answers. But I've learned something about people who lie easily. When you catch them too early, they just get better at lying. So instead, I started paying attention in a way I never had before. I noticed a new cologne sitting in the console of his car, something I'd never bought for him and never smelled on him before. I noticed he started going to the gym at hours the gym wasn't even open, according to the hours posted right there on their website. I noticed a name that kept lighting up his phone screen on the kitchen counter, a name I didn't recognize at all. Simone. I did a little digging, the kind of digging you do when your heart already knows the answer but your mind needs proof. Simone worked in his office. Young, ambitious, the kind of woman who smiled just a little too long when she talked to a married man in front of his wife at company events, the ones I'd been to twice and never thought twice about her. And then one quiet afternoon, doing something I never in a million years thought I would do, I checked our shared cloud account, the one we used for family photos and old tax documents. And there they were, weeks of messages between them, sweet nothings that made my stomach turn. Plans to meet disguised as work trips and late nights. And then, sitting there in black and white, the message that broke something in me that I didn't know could still break. I'm pregnant. I sat down on my bathroom floor for almost an hour after reading that. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't even crying that much, not at first. I was just numb, trying to understand how 8 years of my life could be sitting on a foundation that faked the entire time. Here's where I want to pause and tell you something because I think it matters. When you find out something like this, your first instinct is to explode, to confront right there in the moment, to scream, to demand answers before the shock even settles into your bones. But I had already learned, from watching other women in my life go through similar things, that revenge tastes a lot better cold, calculated, patient. The person who wronged you should have absolutely no idea that you already know everything, because that's when they show you who they really are without any performance for your benefit. So I didn't confront Terrence that night. I didn't confront him the next day either. Instead, I started quietly building my case. I saved screenshots. I looked closely at our finances. I moved a portion of my own savings into an account only I had access to, not out of spite, but out of protection, because a woman in my position needed to know she could stand on her own 2 feet the moment she decided to walk away. I even reached out to a lawyer just for information at first, nothing more than that, and through all of it, I kept living my life exactly like nothing had changed, smiling at dinner, kissing him goodnight. Because I needed time, and I needed that time to figure out exactly how this story was going to end and on whose terms. Then the invitation came. Terrence's company was hosting their annual anniversary gala, a massive event with hundreds of guests, executives, clients, everyone dressed to the nines, everyone watching everyone else. Terrence insisted I attend. It's important for my image, Bella, he said. People expect to see my wife there. If only he had known just how badly he would come to regret those exact words. Because 2 days before that gala, I found something that changed the entire shape of this story. I had been going through some old forwarded emails in that same shared family folder, digging for insurance documents, boring paperwork really, when I stumbled onto a folder that Simone had accidentally been copied into. Medical records, prenatal records specifically. And buried inside those files was something that neither Terrence nor Simone realized I would ever see. The dates didn't add up, not by a little but by a lot. Based on the medical timeline documented right there by her own doctor, the pregnancy had already been well underway, weeks along, before her relationship with Terrence had even started. I sat there staring at my screen for a long, long time, because I understood in that moment that I wasn't just holding proof of an affair anymore. I was holding proof that the woman trying to destroy my marriage had been lying about absolutely everything to both of us. The night of the gala, I put on a deep emerald dress, the one that always made me feel like the best version of myself. I did my hair. I put on the earrings Terrence had given me for our 5th anniversary, a small private irony I allowed myself to enjoy quietly that night. I walked into that ballroom with my head held high, Terrence beside me practically vibrating with nervous energy the entire evening, glancing around like he was waiting for something to happen. He had every right to be nervous. About an hour into the event, right as the room quieted down for a toast, Simone walked in. Dressed in red, unmissable, her belly proudly on display for the entire room to see. She walked directly toward our table, that same confident smile on her face, the kind of smile people give you when they think the outcome has already been decided. I just think it's time everyone knew the truth, she said, her voice pitched just loud enough for the surrounding tables to catch every word. She placed a hand gently on her stomach. Terrence and I are having a baby. Gasps rippled through the nearby tables. Someone's fork clattered against a plate. Terrence's face drained of every ounce of color. She looked directly at me and said, "I'm sorry it has to be this way, Bella, but some things just happen." The old version of me, the one from a year before that night, probably would have burst into tears right there and run out of that ballroom in complete humiliation. But I wasn't that woman anymore, and she was about to find that out the hard way. I stood up slowly, smoothed the front of my dress, and I looked her dead in the eyes with a calm I didn't even know I had access to until that exact moment. "Simone," I said, my voice steady, loud enough for the tables around us to hear just as clearly as they'd heard her. "Before you continue this little performance, I think there's something you should know." The room went completely silent. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder. No dramatic flourish, no throwing it across the table, just placed it down calmly in front of everyone. "These are your prenatal records, Simone," I said. "The ones you accidentally sent to a shared family email account weeks ago." I opened the folder slowly. "According to your own doctor's documented timeline, you were already 11 weeks along before you and my husband's relationship ever even started. Which means," I continued, letting the words land exactly where they needed to, "this baby isn't his." Silence swallowed the entire room. Terrence's head snapped toward her so fast I almost felt sorry for his neck. "What is she talking about?" he demanded. Simone's confident smile cracked right down the middle. "That's not true," she stammered. "She's lying. She doesn't know what she's—" "I have the documents right here," I said, sliding the folder across the table toward Terrence. "Dates, doctor's name, everything laid out in black and white." Terrence grabbed it with shaking hands, scanning through page after page, his expression shifting from confusion into something much colder. "You told me this baby was mine," he said to her, his voice rising now. "You told me it was mine." "Terrence, please, let's talk about this somewhere else," Simone said, her voice cracking now too, all of that earlier confidence draining right out of her like air from a punctured tire. But it was already far too late. Every single person in that room had heard everything. Someone from his office, an older woman I recognized as one of the senior executives, leaned toward the guests at her table and whispered just loud enough for it to carry. "She's been going around telling people it's his." Another voice from somewhere behind me added, wasn't she also seeing that guy from accounting? The story was unraveling in real time, right there under the chandeliers of that ballroom, in front of clients and colleagues and bosses. It turned out Simone hadn't just been sleeping with my husband. She had apparently been juggling more than one relationship inside that same office, and word had already started quietly circulating that this wasn't even the first time she had pulled something like this. Terrence stood there, completely humiliated in front of the very people he had wanted me there to impress, his careful image, shattering into pieces right in front of him, not because of anything I had done, but because of the lies he chose and the woman he chose over the family he already had. I picked up my purse, looked at both of them one final time, and said the only thing that really needed to be said in that moment. I hope whatever this was worth it. Then I turned and walked out of that ballroom with my head high, my heels clicking steadily against the marble floor, every eye in that room following me, not with pity anymore, but with something else entirely: respect. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork, quiet phone calls with my lawyer, and long conversations with myself in the mirror. Terrence tried to explain, tried to apologize, tried every version of I'm sorry a person can offer. But some things, once they're broken all the way through, don't glue back together into anything close to what they used to be. I filed for divorce 2 weeks after that party. Clean, simple, no scrambling and no panic, because I had already quietly protected myself long before that night ever happened. As for Simone, it turned out that Gayla hadn't just been embarrassing for her socially. Terrence's company had strict policies around workplace relationships, and once everything came out that night, she lost her job entirely within the month. The truth about who the baby's actual father was eventually came out too, though that part of the story isn't really mine to tell in detail. Let's just say that some things have a funny way of catching up to people exactly when they least expect it. Terrence lost more that night than just me. He lost the respect of people he had worked alongside for years. He lost the polished image he had spent so long building. And most importantly, he lost the trust of the people who had actually mattered in his life the whole time, people who had been standing right in front of him while he looked elsewhere. As for me, I moved into a new place not long after. I painted the walls a color I actually loved instead of one he had always preferred. I started traveling again, something I hadn't even realized I had quietly given up over the years without noticing. And slowly, one small piece at a time, I found my way back to the woman I had been before I ever became somebody's wife. Here's what I want you to take away from everything I just told you. When someone tries to humiliate you in front of a room full of people, your first instinct is to react loudly, to match their energy and fight fire with fire. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay calm, stay quiet, and let the truth do the talking for you, because people will always show you exactly who they are eventually. Your only job is to be patient enough and prepared enough to actually see it when the moment finally arrives. I didn't destroy anyone that night. I simply stopped protecting people who had never once protected me. If this story taught you anything, let it be this: stay quiet, stay smart, and let people expose themselves in their own time. If you enjoyed this story, follow along for more real stories just like this one. Drop a comment and tell me exactly what you would have done in my shoes. And if there's someone in your life who needs to hear a story like this today, go ahead and share it with them. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one.